as Stuart said, I'm Trent Oswald. I am a full-stack developer at Mashape. And I'm here to talk about distributed API management using Kong. When you're building multiple API microservices, there are a few things that are common that you're doing across all of these different servers. For example, logging and monitoring, authentication, rate limiting, transformations, and cross-origin requests. These are all things that are essential when you're building an API microservice. But when you have multiple services that you're building, it ends up looking a bit like this. We've got multiple APIs across different servers, oftentimes in different languages, as well as with each of those APIs, a duplication of efforts for authentication, rate limiting, caching, logging, and ends up being a lot of code duplication. This can be a problem when you're dealing with in the global marketplace. When you have tens or hundreds of APIs and thousands or millions of connections. This is the problem that we at Mashape ran into. Mashape is a marketplace for APIs, and so we have literally thousands of developers publishing APIs to our marketplace. And we have to handle things like billing, rate limiting, authentication, all of these things. And so this is why we came up with Kong. Kong allows us to bundle up the common tasks between all of the APIs that we're doing, and allows us to handle rate limiting, authentication, logging, custom plugins before it ever reaches the API endpoint. So instead of looking like this, where it's distributed and a lot of duplicated code, your API infrastructure ends up looking like this, where you have all of them in a centralized location, and then once they've gone through Kong, it can then hit individual API endpoints as needed. Now, with this can be both for public and private APIs as well as partner APIs with third-party vendors, because Kong handles all of that for you. One of the great things about Kong is the fact that it can be installed on any of these systems: Docker, Ubuntu, Debian, as well as Mac OS X, and pretty much any other Unix-based system through the Lua Rocks management system. And it can be set up in roughly 30 minutes or less, most often less. So let me show you guys a little bit of some live Kong code. There we go. So I've got this box that I've set up, sandbox.therepperobot.com. When you set up Kong for the first time, it sets up both a consumer API endpoint that's set on one port, and then an admin API, which will allow you to handle management of it through a separate port altogether. For example, I can add in additional API endpoints just by posting to the box, to the admin API, as well as update and delete as necessary. But I can also enable and disable plugin configurations. For example, I've got one in there called key off fairly sure that's the name of it. Yeah, key off right there. So key off allows you to set up what's known as a consumer or an end user and provide them an authentication key. Once they have that key, they can then put that key in their header and their in the body of the request, and Kong will go through, sniff that out, and make sure that the user is authenticated for that endpoint. Then, once you've set up an API endpoint or consumers or all the plugins the way you want to, you can then send a request through it, and it will return the results. This is an API endpoint that maps to mockbid.com, which is one of our services that basically just tests connections, more or less. Allows you to send a request and it'll send back a response basically mimicking the request or showing the data from the request. But yeah. So yeah, there are a number of different plugins that can be used with Kong. And plugins are being developed all the time. We're also in the process of opening up the plugin API so that when you install Kong and there's a feature that we don't provide, you can build your own plugin and have it accessible through the Kong API. And so through that you can make your own admin dashboard, or you can make your own, I don't know, caching system, or you can make your own, you name a common task that you do on API servers, and you can get Kong to do it for you. And so, to finish up, I guess, unless you guys have any questions.
Oh, you're done?
Well, I was planning on doing more if there were more people, but...
That's fair. Do you think, is it possible for, I understand it not, but is it possible for us to see some code?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here.
You said it was in Ruby, right?
No, the entire Nginx, the entire Kong stack is set up on Nginx and Lua.
Okay.
So yeah. So on GitHub, you can find the entire source code in /mashape/Kong. And there you can see basically all the stuff that we're building. There's a command line interface that you can use to handle the entire thing from the command line or SSH. And also take a look at each of the plugins that we're doing. For example, basic authentication, cross-origin requests. Let me get, there we go. Let's make it a little bigger. So authentication, cross-origin requests, file logging. There's also a really cool feature that I haven't played with much, but still looks pretty cool. It's the TCP Log. What that is that any request that comes into Kong, you can then send all the information, the entire har spec, the HTTP archive request. You can send that to an external TCP server. So if you have an analytics server that you set up somewhere, or if you have a more advanced logging system on another system that you would like to just post the information to, you can do that through the TCP log. You have the same thing for UDP if you have only UDP ports open for it. You can also transform requests. If you've got all of these services that all need the same thing coming in, but you don't want to have to deal with it on the client side, you can attach all that information in Kong to the request and send it onto the final server. But yeah, what kind of code do you want to see? Do you want to see like source? Do you want to see?
Can you show me? Okay, so can we hop into the API directory?
Yeah. And you want to take a look at the routes?
What's app.lua?
Here we go. Now be aware, I am not on the core Kong team myself. I'm working on an addition to it, which will be released in about a month and a half. And so at this point, this is a little deeper into Kong than I actually ever have been. So
That's okay. I just
keep that in mind.
I do. So I work on an API, and it's a pretty big API, like day in day out. So we call it Skynet API. And it's the most interesting parts of the Skynet API is Skynet.pm and main.pm, and those are basically these hierarchy Perl modules that have a lot of inheritors, and I like to look at those files to get an idea of how everything else is spawned out. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for here, a file that acts in that kind of way, but I don't know how, like I'm not familiar with this language, so I don't know if it operates in that way at all.
It's, as far as I'm aware, Lua is a C-based language.
The runtime is pure C, yeah. It's got some basic object-oriented, it's procedural object-oriented, light helping of function.
Okay.
And so essentially it ends up being in the same class as Python or Ruby, I'm assuming?
Just that where Python and Ruby and so on, they all have their standard library batteries included, like Python likes to say. Lua, you have to go find your pieces and pull them together.
Okay.
Lua Rocks makes it easier to do that. But, Lua's big niche has been embedded where you're not necessarily trying to pull together an LDAP library and PNG image manipulation library and so on. You're mostly providing the logic for some larger engine that is custom to meet needs. Like Nginx, where the focus of the engine is request comes in, bytes get transformed, data goes back out again.
Absolutely. And one thing that I loved about when I got on board with Mattshape and they started talking to me about Kong is how dedicated to Nginx they are. I've worked with Apache before, and I've been less than excited about how it scales. It doesn't handle large scale requests or large volume of requests in an elegant way.
Not as elegantly as Nginx. Not as elegantly as Nginx.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nginx is really good.
And then not only that, but the configuration is almost dead simple to read and to expand upon and to build for. And so I think it was a very good choice on the part of the Kong team to go that direction for this. But yeah.
How much do you know about, for example, when you make a configuration change through the API? I assume that gets distributed to your entire cluster, or do you have to update individual Kong servers?
That is actually a wonderful question. I do not have the answer to it.
So does Kong is deployed on the API servers,
No.
or it's its own thing and just plugs?
Right. You would set up Kong on its own, either single server or multiple servers, and then you would, when you add an API to it, you give it an API URL.
Okay.
And so you already have to have an API already built and
Right.
and outward facing for Kong to be able to consume it.
Does it have like local data dependencies? Like, is there a database like service running on the Kong server that has things like that?
Kong runs off of Apache Cassandra,
Okay.
and that gets installed automatically when you're installing Kong.
Okay.
Wait, I may have just blatantly lied. The script I use to install it installs it automatically. Normally you would have Cassandra installed before you install Kong.
Okay.
Cassandra is complicated enough that you really want to create it yourself.
Yeah. Ran into some fun things like that when I was setting up my sandbox server. Oh, Cassandra on Ubuntu is not the funnest thing to set up, especially on a single core DigitalOcean droplet.
Cassandra is not the funnest thing to install in any low memory environment.
Fair.
But
it works really good on enterprise.
Yeah.
It works spectacular.
High throughput, linear scalability, good availability. Cassandra's great for that. If you want to run it on your Raspberry Pi, it can be done. You're going to feel pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And that being said, Kong isn't designed to run on Raspberry Pis. You know, it's we've got binaries for all the major systems, but it's designed to work on something with at least 2 cores, and preferably more than 1 server, because it's.
Well, it seems like it's meant to solve a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, like hundreds or thousands of APIs. That's the kind of solutions you guys are looking for.
Exactly.
Or just simply, where do you want to do your rate limiting?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
You want to do this level or this level or this level, right?
See, and when you have servers that are built in various languages, you've got one built in Node, and you've got one built in PHP, and you've got one built in Perl, and you've got one built in Ruby. All of these solutions have varying degrees of efficiency and varying degrees of maintainability. And Kong, removes all of that guesswork and lets you focus on what your APIs really are about. What is this supposed to do itself?
I like that. I like that layer being added in there. That's nice.
Yeah. And that's the name of the game, is that when you're dealing with microservices, when you're dealing with distributed services, you want all of your tooling to be as modular as possible. You need to be able to swap in and out things. You need to be able to, do very specific targeted testing. And those things are a lot harder when you've bundled them all up into a single server. And so that's where Kong shines, is that it allows you to separate your concerns of, basically it ends up being the business concerns of your API and the technical end result of it.
What I'm most interested in is, I can totally see where Kong would fit in for a greenfield project. If you've got an existing system, how hard is it to integrate Kong with that existing system?
It's really easy. Again, so long as you have an external facing API, you can start using the Kong plugins out of the box half hour.
Yeah.
I've never touched the source code of Lockbit at all. I've only used it as a user. And I was able to get Kong set up in a matter of 15 minutes and have it start rate limiting, and have it start authenticating requests when I don't even own the server.
So it's built on Nginx. Does that mean that I have all of the Nginx config capabilities? Anything that I could do with regular Nginx, I can do with Kong. Plus, I've got the Lua engine in it already, and I can if I need to write custom plugins.
Absolutely. And that's another place where Kong shines, is its expandability. We've built all of these plugins like rate limiting and authentication. All of these are just expandable plugins that we wrote. But any end user can write their own plugin to expand upon that in both Nginx and in Lua. Because those tools are open and available for expandability and usage. Kong is really resilient. It's not going to break if you start building on top of it, because that's what it was designed to do. So yeah.
So how much can you tell us about the roadmap for Kong? You mentioned that you're working on a project that's going to come out about a month and a half from now.
The Kong core team right now are working on bug fixes as well as additional internal Kong plugins. I'm working on a separate third product for Mashape that will interface with Kong and provide information for logging. But that's all I can really say about it before it's released. But we designed Kong with modularity and expandability in mind. And so the plugin library is going to be expanding. It's going to be exploding. Because once we open up the API, the plugin API for normal developers to use, you can build anything you want. If you want all images to be returned upside down, you can do that. Like, it's the possibilities of the framework are, in my opinion, endless. So long as it can be done in Nginx and Lua, it can be done. And so yeah. So yeah, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.